Yeah, well. Oh, look at that. We're going to start.
Welcome to the Land Use Committee of the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. This committee operates under the Brown Act. Our agenda is posted 3 days ahead of the meeting at the council office, 13907 Ventura Boulevard, number 104, as well as on the Neighborhood Council website. We encourage stakeholders to keep us informed of their concerns. There are 2 opportunities for you to speak during tonight's meeting. If you want to speak, fill out a speaker card over there, bring it up front. You can speak on something that is under our jurisdiction, but not on the agenda, and just put public comments in the box at the top. If you want to speak on a particular item, put the number of that item in the box. And you'll be given 1 or 2 minutes depending on how many speaker cards we have. Everyone is entitled to be heard uninterrupted. That means no shouting, no heckling, and no applause. I know some of you will need to talk to each other or talk on a cell phone. Please do that in the outer office. My job is to make sure everyone here is treated fairly, and I take that very seriously. Okay. Alicia Bartley, good evening. Tom Camps. Here. Jackie Diamond. Here. Art Fields. Here. Jeff Galvin. Here. Marty Maloney. Here. Sue Steinberg. Here. Rick Mayer. And Ron Ziff. We have a quorum. The minutes of the last meeting were not ready in time, so we'll take them up next month. Let's see, Jonathan Brand, who represents the council office, District 4, is not with us tonight. He is out sick this week. I think I saw a couple of neighborhood council board members here. Lisa Petrus over here, and Carolyn Cassavan, hi. And Sidonia, hiding back there, Sidonia Lex. And is there anybody else, any other public officials that I missed? Okay. I'm going to give the chair report first, and then we'll get on to the agenda. The rental party house at 15105 Mulholland, the owners of it are being prosecuted by the city attorney. There have been numerous complaints to us and to the council office about noise and wild parties by Sherman Oaks neighbors. The house is in Sherman Oaks, but when they rent it, they advertise it as being in Bel Air. Untrue. The house has been rented for days or weekends through Airbnb. It is illegal to rent a house for less than 30 days. The rental fees run $35,000 for a weekend, plus 14% city tax, which reportedly has been pocketed by Airbnb and has not been remitted to the city. And the city attorney is handling this case. The National Park Service, Rim of the Valley Park, is having its last public meeting in the current series. The park will include a strip along the ridge line in a circle around the entire valley. It includes land that is privately held and held by agencies like the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. This park's been in development for over 5 years and will probably be presented to Congress in the next 2 to 3 years. Often the public waits until it's too late. If you're concerned about traffic or park activity, this is the time to get involved. There were 3 previous meetings in this particular series in and around the valley. It's the 3rd series of meetings they've had. This meeting will be in downtown LA, Tuesday, June 2, 3 to 5 p.m. at the Pueblo de Los Angeles Historical Monument, 130 Paseo de la Plaza. The city mobility plan update will be heard at City Planning Commission on Thursday, May 28th, 8:30 a.m., Van Nuys City Hall. We reviewed the plan about a year ago. It will increase bicycle lanes throughout the city, and through various actions will increase the number of jammed or failed intersections by 20%. The one positive point in the draft plan is that the draft plan had said the Sepulveda Pass problem would not be addressed until after 2035. We urged them to change this statement, and now the plan says the Sepulveda Pass needs attention from Caltrans and Metro in the near future. That doesn't mean we'll get attention. DWP will be replacing a 100-year-old trunk line along Magnolia Boulevard over the next several months. It will create quite a bit of disruption. There'll be a meeting May 27th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Amelia Earhart Library in North Hollywood. The public's invited to attend. And if you hear about the used car lot that's requesting a zone variance to operate in a residential area on Moore Park, that has been postponed to our June 18th meeting at the applicant's request. Public forum, I had a couple of requests for public comments. Chase, Jill Croce, is it? Wanted to talk about Chase Knowles?
Yes.
Jill, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes.
Chase Oak is a historic landmark. Some of you may be familiar with us. It was designated back in 2000 after the property was under credit being raised. It had gone through an environmental impact report in 2004. It was very complicated, it's very detailed. I'm not going to go into a lot of things were done that were shady. The land use commission, the neighborhood council land use committee at the time had met with us. They had supported no development at Chase Knowles. They were not happy with the size of the proposed buildings because what they're going to do, what they're planning on doing is knocking down the existing one-story garages. There's and building 6 new buildings. Those buildings will have 160 new units in them and subterranean parking. It's mansionization. They are out of scale with the look and feel of the property. And again, it is a historic landmark. The committee back in 2004, the land use committee, didn't approve of this. They went to the city's planning commission with us. They fought. Our councilperson at the time was Wendy Rule in the LA Conservancy. Nobody was supporting the plan. The developers threatened to invoke the Ellis Act, evict everybody, raise the property, unless this plan was approved. It was a closed door meeting. They stopped the meeting, went in back. They agreed to save the property. The building's been flipped multiple times. We have new owners now. They have deep pockets, and they're threatening to build the 6 units, or the 6 new buildings with 160 units. So we are starting to get the parking spaces. We're getting eviction notices on the parking spaces. Nobody's losing their home. They're losing their parking and storage. The current landlord and the management company won't speak to us. We're coming to you for help. Sorry, I was a little frazzled, but we're coming to you for help. We don't know. We're trying to navigate through. We're seeking your support. We would like to be included in any mansionization projects to include the apartments because it's really important, and Chase Falls is historic.
Okay, well, the problem you have, am I legally correct on this? Apartment buildings don't come under the mansionization ordinance. It's only R1 properties. So that's not an avenue for you.
Historic overlay?
I don't know. This is the first I've heard of it. Is anyone else aware of this? Mikey?
It's not an HPOC, it's not a historic.
That area is not HPOC.
Were you on the committee on this?
Yes, years ago, yes. We supported the tenant.
Yes, yes. Very supportive. The neighborhood council has been very supportive of Chase Falls since the beginning.
Jill, what I'd like you to do is give me your phone number and address and email information on here. And if you'll email me, through the neighborhood council, discuss the issue, find out. We have gotten no notice of any development right now at this point. And within the next week or so, we won't even have a planning deputy in the council office to talk to. So, let me have your information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Riverside Drive between Milton and Sunnyside. Sure.
Richard Adams, you want to talk about?
Yeah, and I know mansionization is a hot topic because I live in the Studio City, so I'll make it very quick.
You're talking
No.
public comments.
Yes, I am. I would just say I will make this as quick as possible. My name is Richard Adams. I live just east of the Fulton, dividing between Sherman Oaks and Studio City. I think it's past time our neighborhoods work together, at least that little area, because we're either fish for a fowl or good red meat. And there's certain forces in Studio City that live all the way down Colfax Meadows that think they can do whatever they want. And I'm tired of fighting. I like to do something positive.
Richard, talk.
So anyway, what I'm here for, and I'm not sure this is the right committee, but I'm under a timeline to produce some sort of results for my council district, or they're going to give these other geniuses what they want. I'm looking to build a consensus between the residents on the east side of Fulton and the west side of Fulton. Sherman Oaks wants to brand their boundaries. Studio City wants to brand their boundaries. But there's got to be a way to do it that is conducive to what the neighborhood wants and needs and what the larger neighborhood wants and needs, and not just to say, well, cookie cutter, this is what we've done everywhere else. One monument or one marker for both neighborhoods that doesn't impede on the residents that live immediately next to it, which is what Studio City people are planning. And it would be a good way for the two neighborhood councils to work together, the neighborhoods work together, and build something positive instead of constantly having endless strife. Nip, 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 nip. So if this is the right committee to start working with, or your visionary committee that I missed the meeting on last week because I was recovering from my birthday, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to go to a meeting tonight. Oh. So there it is, there we are, and I will talk with whoever's appropriate offline, and maybe come to the next SONC board meeting and hurry up and get
I'm going to ask you
nationalization.
the same thing I asked the other lady. Give me all your information. I'll get back to you. I don't know the answer to that one at this point. Okay. Carolyn,
Ron,
do you have a guest speaker?
yes, he's not here, so I don't know if he's looking for parking or if is running late. And I didn't remember the phone I provided. But you want to move on to the next item, if she doesn't show up before, the 7C, then.
Yes. Well, next item involves mansionization. The neighborhood council had a meeting on May 11th, and we had a lot of people there to watch a panel discussion on it. And we said we would follow up and hear what you had to say. That time was for the panel to talk. we would like to hear what you have to say about this controversial subject. Is she here now?
Is she? But
Okay.
keep going. to-
No,
Okay.
no, we're gonna,
Okay.
is it gonna take you time to set up?
We just need to, we need to load up her presentation.
Okay, well, you load that up, I'll just give my opening remarks before we start, then we're gonna go to that, and come back to Mansionization. For the people that have speaker cards in, you're welcome to say anything you want on the subject. We wanna hear your views, either for more regulation or less. And we wanna know what you want regulated or what you don't want regulated. At the neighborhood council meeting, several people said they opposed overbuilding, but what do you consider overbuilding? And I just like to be certain before we start that we're discussing the same things. So I want to cover a couple of points. One is that the Mansionization Ordinance covers single-family homes, nothing else. No apartments, no condos, no small lot subdivisions, and no commercial properties. So those are not what we're talking about tonight. Sherman Oaks is a large geographic area. Of the 96 neighborhood councils, Sherman Oaks is the largest. We have 65,000 households, some 130, 140,000 people living here. We have a range of topography. It's flat near Burbank Boulevard in the north, and it runs down to the south where it's quite mountainous, approaching Mulholland Drive. Obviously, one ordinance won't fit at all. So we want to hear where you live or what area you're talking about. When you talk, tell us specifically what area concerns you, because what the committee finally decides to present and send up the line may have to have different aspects to it. I've been asked about the Interim Control Ordinance that was passed for 21 areas in the city. It is an interim control ordinance. It says it's effective until the planning department comes out with new regulations some 2 years hence. But contrary to popular belief, it is not a single ordinance. Each of the 21 areas has a distinctly different set of regulations. So we can't just say include us, we have to decide what we're being included in. So, are you ready?
You know what, my computer froze. And I never had that
Well,
happen. So I'm restarting it, so you can just keep going.
We're gonna go ahead, we'll take you afterwards then.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I'm gonna, let's see, how many cards we got? Any other cards? 6, 7, 15 cards here. Okay. You and I have been through that. I know. Okay, Carol, Locatellis first. Hi. Okay, Carol, I want to thank you for giving us a plug last night. It's so hot. Absolutely. A lot of these people wouldn't be here if they didn't hear you. Anyway,
I'm glad you're having this. I think we all are. Okay, I live with my husband between Long Ridge and Hazeltine, south of the boulevard. Okay? And I prepared this little, I've got a minute. So, city planners have suggested temporary rules to curb demolitions and give residents breathing room in Los Angeles neighborhoods that have mobilized against mansionization, like Sunset Square, Studio City, North Beverly Grove. Because of this, in communities like Sherman Oaks that are not protected by these curbs, the demolition and construction of oversized single-family homes has intensified as developers have shifted their focus here. My neighbors and I would like a moratorium to be put in place so that our privacy, our greenery, the character of our neighborhood is protected from these giant boxes.
We want to hear, we don't want you to take her time.
That's the, just speaking for myself here quickly, I didn't realize that we needed to have specifics tonight, but the 20%, go ahead, you can add more because you put one environmental wonderful thing in your house, or the floor isn't quite laid out. It's awful. I would love to see that go bye-bye. You have a beautiful yard, they tear everything out, and then put up like one little tree and a couple of flowers, and they're staring down on everyone's life in our yards. So this 20% over, I really wish that would go away. 50% of the land use is fabulous. And it's 2 stories, so I mean, how many people are gonna live there, 40?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lisa Seidman? Yeah. Good idea. Don Spector and Nancy Sedoyan, if you could come up here, we won't have a break between people. We'll just move right along. And did you say turn on for the condition? We're getting refrigerated. Okay, good.
Hi, I'm Lisa Seidman. I live in Sherman Oaks between Fulton and Woodman and Riverside and Moore Park. So we live in a very small, unique area of Sherman Oaks. We only have 3 entrances/exits to our neighborhood. We're also on a historical register similar to Chase Knowles because our streets have a very unique post-World War II architecture. And our neighborhood is opposed to the mansions. We would like a restricted ICO because we feel, again, and we have pictures, that these mansions come and overwhelm the unique character of our post-World War II homes. They also take away from our greenery. I would like the council to consider CEQA as part of the ICO to protect the environment, to look at the traffic impacts, to protect the greenery and the uniqueness and the historical, cultural character of our neighborhood. Okay?
Controls are broken. Turn it off. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Don?
Hi, I'm Don Spector. We live on Valley Vista at the foot of a lot.
You're talking to the committee.
Oh, I'm talking to committee. As a retired madman, I spent a lot of time on my feet expressing my opinion, but tonight, very briefly, I'm going to express somebody else's opinion. About a month or so ago, our family visited us from Minneapolis, and I was walking around our neighborhood with my daughter-in-law, and we were walking down the street, I made no comments, and she looked at one of the homes, and she said, "That's kind of big." I didn't make any comment, I didn't want to influence her. We continued down, and she saw another one, she looked aghast at that too. And we continued on for several minutes, and she said, she turned to me and she said, Don, I'll never forget the quote. She said, they don't belong here. And you have to understand, Joanne is not a sophisticated Beverly Hills fashionista. She is a sheriff's deputy in Minneapolis, and she spotted that these homes are out of place. And I talked to her yesterday, and I told her about this meeting, and she said, Don, please quote me on this. Use my words, because I really meant them. Those homes don't belong here. Joanne and I don't agree on many things. This one we do.
Thank you. Nancy, you're next. If we could have Anna Friel and William Guzman.
Hi, Council. My name is Nancy Segoyan. I'm a 20-year homeowner in Sherman Oaks in the Fashion Square area. There are no two stories on the two-block stretch where I live, your Hazeltine and Ranchito. And I did speak at 5 o'clock today with David Rue's office. I spoke with Rachel, and she indicated he is supportive of getting Sherman Oaks included in the ICO for the same protections that neighboring communities have. With their votes, Sherman Oaks homeowners clearly voiced their opposition to mansionization and to greedy developers ruining their lovely character neighborhoods. Tom Lavanya's office omitted Sherman Oaks while the rest of District 4, Valley Village were included in the ICO, and Studio City has similar individual protections. That omission has made Sherman Oaks the prime target by developers seeking to build for profit the residential monstrosities they are prevented from building in neighboring communities. Developers are so aggressive right now, they're robocalling homeowners who don't even have the properties for sale. I mean, square footage and features determine your home's value. So the developers who say, oh, your homes are all increased, no. If you live next to a McMansion that takes away your privacy and your quality of life, your house is not going to increase in value, just the opposite. Our homes are our sanctuaries, they're our hearts, they're our blood, sweat, and tears. Leaving Sherman Oaks prey to developers who essentially take money and run, leaving the homeowners who were there before to brave the consequences is just not justifiable. There's already been overbuilding in Sherman Oaks. IMT is 5 huge, gigantic block-long, 3-4-story high apartment buildings. A case in point, the Sunkist project is looming. Sherman Oaks homeowner rights need to be protected. We need action now. We're counting on you to protect the homeowners, not, greed is not good, contrary to William Gavin. So,
Hi, my name is Ann Friel, and I live in Sherman Oaks near the park. And I'm not opposed to development. I believe in the concept of ties and mass use. But I think that anything that's built should be of comfortable and compatible size and design for the neighborhood. And I think what a lot of the people I've been talking to are really concerned about is that the homes that are being built are squeezed onto lots with no real consideration for what will happen to the surrounding homeowners and even how the look of the home will affect the rest of the neighborhood. So that's one of the things I'm concerned about. Also, I am hoping that you will adopt, or that we can help work with you in adopting design criteria that's sensitive to the neighborhood. For example, I just gave the example, and then adopting an ICO similar to Studio City, Valley Village et al. And I propose adopting a design review board similar to what the Mulholland Scenic Parkway specific plan has. A friend of mine lives on Camino de la Cumbre, and she sent me this, and I don't think it's a bad idea. Also, I think, as Nancy mentioned, that Sherman Oaks is more vulnerable to the concept of mansionization because we weren't included in any type of ICO. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is I lived in this community for 30 years, and I've seen it change from, cute little houses that were built in a way that was compatible to, their lots, and then, other homes. For example, on my street, there are 2 homes that are 2-story. They're not huge. They're actually very nice. Oh, we've run out of time. They're very nice. And then I drive around others, and they're just gigantic, and that's where you get the term mansionization, where you have a house that's too large for the size of the lot. Sorry.
If we could have, is it Sam Greenberg?
Yep.
And Jolene Bell and Paul Michael. On deck.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is William Kuzman. I'm a realtor for 33 years, and to give you some association with Sherman Oaks, the first office I worked for was Monteleone and Associates, just down here and around the corner. I've sold a lot of properties over the year. I deal with a lot of homeowners. I'm dealing with residential homeowners that are dealing with their single biggest investment that most make. And so when it comes to changing their property rights, how much they can build on their land, when we buy land, it's our right, our American right, to be able to build on it what we are allowed to do for the city. Now, the city said we had a mansionization problem, and they created the baseline mansionization ordinance. Inside the baseline mansionization ordinance, they created a tool called the residential floor area district. You must ask for a residential floor area district before you can ask for an ICO. And my big issue with these things is there are property rights. And the baseline mansionization ordinance says that the RFA districts are for when a majority of the homeowners want to raise or lower the current restrictions. Now, there's a loophole. City council can submit one of these things just based on 20 people's opinion or a neighborhood council's opinion. I don't think that's right, because what happens, the other way to get one done is you have to have 75% of the signatures. So if city council passes one with 25 signatures, it's going to take you 75% of your neighbors to overturn it if you don't like what they did. So my biggest issue is, and this is the charge to you as neighborhood council representatives of the public, make sure you do everything possible to seek out those lightly represented stakeholders in your community that might not have such a big problem with the mansionization. And if I may just be allowed to go on for 1 minute, because I might be Mr. Chair, because I just want to say, first of all, you can't be added to the current ICO. Mr. Englander stated that on April 28th that the ICO cannot be amended. So your first step is really to go for the RFA district. I am not opposed to having the controls as long as a majority do it. And just a little correction, there are 4 communities that got the same restriction. I live in one of them, and we don't have a problem. So what's been going on, I just want you to be cautious. I want you to make sure we know. When they're passed, the homeowners are being told to disclose this to their buyers. So it's a big issue about letting us know what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Each person is given 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, thank you. Wow.
Good evening, Mr. Greenberg.
I'm also going to be on the side of pro-mansionization, if you will. I own a 1,600 square foot home just south of Magnolia, north of the river in Sherman Oaks. I purchased my home 2 years ago. Why did I purchase my home? My neighborhood was, quite frankly, hit terribly hard by the recession, significant amount of foreclosure activity, and many homes that have fallen into disrepair. The only reason why there's been investment in my neighborhood is because the promise of being able to develop into a higher and better use. By putting restrictions in place, such as the ones that the city are proposing, that investment is likely to stop. That's not only going to affect the property value that I have benefited from the development of my neighborhood, but it's effectively going to amount to a wealth transfer from people like me, who own a small home in the neighborhood, who have benefited from the uptick in property prices, to instead the people who have already landed larger homes in the neighborhood will now have more value accruing to them. I purchased my home in no small part because one day I hope that I can expand it as my family expands. And I would like to think that many other people in my neighborhood who are starting out, and I know this is a bit of an intergenerational conflict. I'm somebody who's in their 20s who purchased my own home. Most people in my neighborhood are not that age, but they will be soon. And those are all people who are likely going to have different views of their neighborhood than the people who spend it. So I'd like that to be taken into account. There is a bit of an intergenerational issue here. There's a wealth transfer issue here, and it has been to the benefit of several neighborhoods, including my own. Walk around my neighborhood and see what's happened to several of the homes that literally have been falling apart and have been fenced off and condemned due to foreclosure. Don't stop this process. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julie Bell. I live between Fulton and Woodland, Riverside, and Oak Park, and I'm against nationalization. I'm not against building onto your home and making it, and building into your family as it grows and getting 40 people into the home. I don't know. But I don't feel like there's going to be a wealth transfer. I feel like the people that have invested in our area, if you've got a mansion on either side of you, or even a couple streets down, people don't look at that and want to move into a house and buy your property. If I want to sell, I'm not going to make a profit off of my home that I've been building for 10 years and putting money into. And I also feel like the developers that come in, they just come in, they build these big homes, they take the profit and they leave. They don't have to live in the neighborhood, they don't have to live beside you, they don't have to live behind you and have the privacy taken from your home. The lady right next to a mansion that's going up in our neighborhood, by the way, that we've stopped the building up because we're, very concerned and we're checking permits and everything. She was crying because she had no sunlight in her windows now, in her kitchen window. I mean, it's okay to build your house. Somebody in our neighborhood built probably a 25 to 3,000 square foot house, but they didn't two-story it. It's big, it looks great, it fits into the neighborhood. It's not taken away from the character. There's not as much traffic going through our neighborhood, and we also have a very quiet and dimly lit street, which we like. Now it's bringing all kinds of more lighting. They overlight these houses, and the character of the neighborhood is just demolished. I don't know. It just doesn't feel comfortable that they're taking away our privacy. That's my main issue, and that they have no concern for the people that live there and build their homes there. It's really sad.
Thank you. Paul Michael is next, and then after him, Guy Buckar, is it? John Roche, and Don Grant. You can come up. I'll go ahead.
Time. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm not going to cover all of the topic. Everyone so eloquently described what the problem is. What I'd like to ask you for is, given the laws, given the regulations, when you look at common sense, if there's rules and regulations in other parts of the city, how is it that we can make reasoning that we can't have something here? I'm for fair. I understand the gentleman wants to expand and make a profit. I certainly am not I'm against mansionization. But I certainly understand profit and I understand freedom. People should be able to do what they want on their property. But there is a limit. Unfortunately, in law, we can't legislate taste. And I think that's the common thread here that everyone is saying, if you really cut through the chase. Taste. So, what can be done and why is it taking so long to get to this point? I live between Hazeltine and Woodman, south of the boulevard, on a small street. There are 5 mansions on my street. There are 3 currently being built. There's going to be one beside me, possibly. I get it. You want to make a big profit, you want to flip it so 2 people can live in 5,000 square foot home. That's your right. But can't we use common sense if other neighborhoods, from the extreme of Santa Monica to other neighborhoods that have lesser coverage, can't we do something here? Can we not stop with, well, we have to go through this? Common sense. What's fair for everybody? There's got to be a midpoint. And that's why I wanted to speak my mind here. We've heard all the reasoning. You can't legislate taste. There's no way. It's unfortunate. But the character of the neighborhood is dwindling. I've lived here 23 years. I've lived in my current home 16. We should be ashamed. We need to do something. Taste can't be legislated. Fairness can be.
Guy Bodger? Gabe Bodger? Okay. John Roche?
Hello, I'm John Roche, and I live here in the neighborhood. And everybody's already said everything a dozen times, so it's silly for me to reiterate that. But if you think about it, just peripherally, we have 80, 90 foot tall, incredibly beautiful trees here. And you wouldn't believe it, but that's how the place got its name, was because of the trees. And so what do? We take them all out. So I figure if we keep on going the way we're going, we'll be looking for another name.
All right.
John Grant? Tom Grant, I'm sorry, Tom Grant. Okay, and then Dino Grant, Nancy Boustein?
That's the wrong subject for Dino Graham, by the way. I was on the,
I'm sorry, yes, you're here for me. Okay, Tom Grant, Nancy Boustein, John Isaac. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I moved here 40 years ago. I moved here for the character of our community, and as recently as 10 years ago, I thought the character was still worth preserving. But I think what you need to take into consideration is some of our neighborhoods have already been targeted, and they need to be treated differently. There's neighborhoods that are still, uniform, and attention needs to be given to them. But if I already have a 5,000 square foot house next to me, behind me, and in front of me, I don't think that you can take away the building rights that somebody just last week built next door to me, and now I can no longer build. So I think what you need to have is some rational basis for determining what size of house you need on a property and what impact you're actually trying to eliminate. I mean, just because a house has elevation changes doesn't mean that you just still don't have a two-story wall next door to you. So if you can figure out how to eliminate those kind of impacts, then you have something. But otherwise, it's basically the square foot value of the house. So if you're going to take away 1,000 square foot of building right on my house now, that translates to $600,000 in value for the property when it's developed. And that's a pretty substantial reduction in value. It just can't be taken away arbitrarily. There's little things that the city does that allows these houses to even have a greater impact, and you realize they'll walk along with their little laser guns now and check the setback on each house. And if the house has a bay window that sticks out 3 feet farther than the rest of the houses on the block, now it's average, of course, but now the new house can be built all the way out to where that bay window sits out somewhere along the block. So it's little things like that the city needs to better manage how they allow, and permit the houses to be built.
Nancy Boustein?
So I'm a researcher in my real life. I'm not a public speaker, so go with me on this one. I live on Calhoun Street between Millbank and Moore Park in the Library Square area. For me, the issue is not preventing any present homeowners from building onto their homes in order to accommodate their families. My concern is speculators coming into our community like locusts, really like locusts, and destroying the character of our neighborhoods. On my street, the original homes were about 13 have been raised and 4,000 square foot houses have been put in the same spot, the 1,300 square feet homes were. The homes in my neighborhood, which is right here, had driveways that separated, each house had a driveway separating it from the next house, so there was the driveway and 5 feet added on each property that gave us privacy. Now these houses are being built right 5 feet from the property line, and they totally built all over the driveway, so we don't even have that.
Setback.
Yeah, setback, I guess. So it affects the light in my home, it affects the privacies. They're monolithic structures that are assembled like IKEA boxes, and that's exactly what they look like. You can actually touch the house while you're standing on your own property, which is quite disturbing. These speculative developers who don't live in our neighborhood are only there to make a quick buck. I'd like it stopped. I support the moratorium on building. I think there's an inherent intangible value in maintaining the character and feeling of these old neighborhoods with space between homes. It's what makes the neighborhood attractive and desirable for buyers. Developers come into these desirable neighborhoods and raise them like locusts, taking advantage of the established inherent value of the older, less dense areas, and then ruining them without regard because of the easy money. You know, it's interesting, I'm being cut off with the real estate agent who to speak for a whole hour.
I cut him off.
I think we should all have 5 minutes. 5? We should all have 5 minutes. Neighborhood councils get 5 minutes. Yeah, why not us? You know?
Thank you. Richard.
Oh, I'm good at making controversy, I gotta say.
Hi, I'm John Eisen, and I'm on the board of directors of the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. We have a unique opportunity to have a consensus in our community among the Homeowners Association, the Neighborhood Council, and the Chamber, along with our new city council person. Our new city council person has pledged to support an ICO for Sherman Oaks. So this is our opportunity. Now, we're talking about ICO, an interim measure. 7 years ago, the city passed an ordinance for the flatlands. And they drew the line, and they said how much could be built. Nobody's happy with it today. And many communities, as we all know, have gotten relief for the time being. The city is going to change the rules on this. We don't know when. 6 months, 18 months, 24 months, 3 years, we don't know. So, what do we do in the interim? We want to keep the status quo for the interim. We don't want any more McMansions in our community in the interim. Once they're built, the cat's out of the bag, we can't tear them down. So we want to keep things, we want some reasonable regulations now in the interim before the city makes a decision on what we're going to do on a permanent basis. And all of us here are going to have an opportunity to give input to the city. What do we want to see on a permanent basis? Which is critical, but that's not what we're here for. What do we do on an interim basis? And so we need to come up with something reasonable that can go through the city council quickly and get us relief in the time that it will take the city to decide what to do on a permanent basis. So now is the time to act. And I think that everybody is together on this. We need to figure out what we want to do, reach a consensus, and then get our new city council person to bring the motion and get this going. Thank you.
I'm Greg Prestipino. Make it easier. I'll keep it short. I mean, I do think aesthetics are important. They're very important to me. I'm an artist. One of the reasons I moved here was for the greenery, the alluvial soil. It's all runoff from these hills to the LA River. Up the street from me, a big house is being built and ripped out 2 80-year-old yuccas. You can buy them for $20,000 a piece. I don't know that you can legislate this, but I don't know why we can't legislate green belts to some degree. I mean, 5 years ago, there were arguments made for large shade trees so that people would cut down on their energy use. We all know these houses don't plant anything like that. And you can legislate aesthetics to some degree. I don't think it'll ever happen in Los Angeles, but just to be clear, in Portland, Oregon, they now have, and have had for a long time, you cannot build a house with a garage in front. You have to leave a driveway down one side of the house to keep it in character with what's been there for years. So that was an aesthetic legislation. I don't really have much more to say about it. I mean, it's heartbreaking for me to see what's going on. That's all I can say.
Lisa Petrus, getting next, and Brad Kirsty, is it? Okay.
2 minutes quick.
Does she say she's a board member?
One character, one quality of life, and the other is values. That's the character. What's really happening in our community right now, when we talk about Mansionization, is we're getting Mission Viejo superimposed on Sherman Oaks. If I wanted to live in that kind of neighborhood, I would have elected to live in it. I chose to live in a neighborhood that has a certain characteristics. The houses have a certain profile, the quality of how they look is a part of what we're buying when we move into this neighborhood. I think John Eisen made a very good point. This is an interim ordinance. This is not about a permanent thing. This is a process to buy some time so we can look, as the rest of the city is looking, at what the future of our community is going to be. We need that time and you can give it to us. Quality of life. These houses destroy the quality of life. We've heard other people speak to it. The kinds of things they bring to the neighborhoods that are built for smaller houses is more traffic, higher demands from all kinds of infrastructure, and ultimately a deterioration in the infrastructure itself. Simple things, tractors tear up streets. Our streets are a mess right now because the tractors and heavy equipment that comes into the neighborhood to build these mansions destroys the paving that the city spends thousands and millions of dollars a year taking care of. Right? So the infrastructure is being challenged in a way that you can help us at least stop temporarily while we study. Is there a better way to do this? Value. These places are destroying value, not only of the quality of the life, but of the properties themselves. You own one of these small houses, here's how much your house is worth, $850,000. Because that's what the vulture contractors will pay for your house.
Yep,
Cash. They don't want your house to be worth. If you get your house worth more, $2.3 million, 6,000 square feet, it's only because you got money to build it that way. But if you're not a contractor, you don't get it. We're losing value because of that.
Hi, I'm Lisa Petrus, residential area for Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. For those who don't know the area, it's from the freeway to Ventura Boulevard, from Hazeltine to Sepulveda, and that's my area. A couple months ago at an executive meeting, we were discussing topics to bring up at our next board meetings, and I suggested this topic, mansionization, and everybody thought it was a great idea. We had people come and speak at the last meeting, and we had an okay turnout, not a fabulous turnout, but an okay turnout. But I knew that the neighbors, at least my neighbors in the hood that I'm in, are upset about this. My little block on Lamona Avenue, which is between Moore Park and Camarillo, we currently have 4 mansions, 4. A 5th one was just finished. When I bought my house 17 years ago, I lived in a 1920s Spanish house. It's 2,000 square feet. It's an adorable house. The reason I bought it wasn't that it was a big house. It was because it had a fabulous lot. It had a lot of trees and had privacy. 5 years ago, the little house behind me got torn down. 2 big houses went up. When I inquired, they said, oh, it had been zoned years ago to be able to put 2 houses on that small lot. They're on 40 feet lots instead of 50-foot lots. So I now have 2 big houses behind me. On the side beside me, the house beside me, our neighbors got divorced. They felt terrible about selling their house. The builder promised them that he was buying it for his daughter. He was just going to fix it up. He tore it down. Now 5 feet from my pool, where I used to be able to skinny dip, which nobody should ever have to see, is a huge guest house, which the builder promised me he would not put windows on that side. Not only are there 2 huge windows, there's a gigantic balcony now, staring into the backyard. When a difference, because the building was down, and that's when I found out that they had the ordinance in place, and all of those developers fled Studio City and came to Sherman Oaks. And we have a problem, Ron, and the neighbors are very upset, as we can see tonight. Thank you.
First, and then after him, Kaini Wintomoka. Am I saying that right? Okay. Kind? Yes, that's you? Okay, you're next after that one. Valerie Washburn. Okay, Brad, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Brad Durst. I actually walked here tonight. I'm definitely a resident of this neighborhood, and my house was built in 1951. Does anybody else live in a house prior to 1960 built?
Oh, yeah.
So, anybody drive a car that's prior to 1990? I sincerely apologize that my generation and everybody else who's buying these monsters that you guys are talking about are not here. Because we love this neighborhood. We want to move our families here. We want to spend our money here. We want to eat in the restaurants. And these houses that everybody's talking about building, we're buying. And we love it here. And I would hate for that to be restricted. You go to a restaurant at night, it's filled with young, vibrant people spending their money.
I'm gonna have to clear the room if we can't be quiet.
It's a next generation moving in. We're respectful. We help our neighbors bring in the garbage cans. We do whatever we can to help out. You can ask my neighbors. Okay, we bring food to people who are sick. But we're not bad, we're not evil, there's nothing wrong with us. This is where we want to live. And I think the dollars speak louder than anybody else. I apologize that we're all not here as a group, because my generation, they don't care. We don't show up to vote. Okay, but I'm telling you, if you go around and poll, you'll see a lot of younger faces who have a lot of respect for the neighborhood, who have a lot of respect for the people who live in the neighborhood.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna ask you to be quiet. It's my job to make sure everyone gets a fair chance to speak. And those of you who cannot keep your mouths shut while someone else is speaking, please step outside. It is not fair to anyone to allow heckling, and I will not allow it.
My house is 1,600 square feet, but I would really impress the council to take in consideration the 159,562 people that aren't here that represent this neighborhood as well. I mean, we have a lot of homes, we have a lot of families, we have a lot of people, and it's not simple. And I would hate to start slashing and cutting and ruining a vibrancy of a growing neighborhood.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, I mangled your name. Tanioka. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tanioka, and then me and my husband have been living in the neighborhood for 5 years, and we own a 1,000 square feet house. And I'm one of those younger generation, but I'm against mansionization because we have a pool and we've been living quietly, peacefully in the area. And recently, a lot of houses in our neighborhood has been torn down. And I live in Hiddenwood area, which is between Riverside, Fulton, and Magnolia. And now we have gigantic buildings beside us, and there's a big mall in the back. It was just sold, and now the house can see into our kitchen, bedroom, living room, dining room, and into our pool. So we're not gonna swim until we start growing tall trees along the fence line. And then one topic that, no offense, previous gentleman touched on was small houses were being benefited from. We have small houses, but we're not being benefited from if you want to stay. Yeah. And the second thing is that it was told that we only have a small group of people. So, like, when people are like us, we can go out there, we can ask for the votes, we can distribute a ballot, we can collect them, we can get majority of people's voice by that way, those who cannot come here. So,
That's what I want to say, and that's